All right, y'all. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. We are on WNOV 860, 106.5 FM, Be Your Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices. Back 2 days a week. I know y'all missed us for 3 days, but we got y'all 2 days. But we here. We still here. What's up, Joe?
Hey, what's up, man?
All right. I'm sorry. Brian, Community Outreach Organizer for Wisconsin Voices.
I'm Joe Dre. I'm the Policy Director for Wisconsin Voices.
Hey, what's up? We got a guest today, huh?
Yeah.
Right out the
yeah,
gate,
it was a
as usual.
big day.
Yeah.
It's a really big day in Milwaukee and across the state of Wisconsin. It's election day.
I would agree.
I think the very first thing we need to tell our listeners is if you haven't yet and already, make a plan, get out and vote.
Yes, stop, please. Whatever you're doing, I know some of y'all are driving, chilling right now, getting ready, maybe eating a late breakfast. But if that's the case, go ahead, stop, get it out the way now before it gets busy. I did just go to the DMV. I did a couple drop off of some voter guides and just some things that I've just been doing the last couple of days. And the DMV was packed, but today was like a perfect day to get those voter guides back in. So I think I'm gonna stop at one more DMV just so it's fresh, just to get it out there to folks to know to go vote and just to give them a little awareness of what's going on today. Because a lot of people, I'm sad to say, they don't pay attention to it as much as you really think they do. So.
Yeah, especially some of these local elections. The national ones get all the spotlight. But when you start looking down to the lower, local elections, those kind of get overlooked a lot, but they're just as important, if not more important.
Definitely.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk, of course, about elections because it's election day. And we have one of the candidates today for 3rd District Alderman, Alex Brower. Alex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what motivated you to run for alder?
Yeah, well, first I'll just say, thanks to WNOV and Wisconsin Voices for having me on. Joe, Brian, really appreciate both of you guys and for covering this important election for Common Council here in Milwaukee. Now, it is for the 3rd District, which is the East Side, River West, Brady Street areas, but the Common Council affects the entire city of Milwaukee. So I really appreciate every listener out there caring about what goes on at City Hall, right? And that's, one of the reasons I ran for this seat, because what's going on at City Hall right now is not in the interest of regular working people. We need a city government that focuses on workers and communities rather than the big corporations and the big money donors right now. So one of the main reasons I ran for this is to see that change down at City Hall so that we can have an economy that works for the people that create wealth. Right now, our economic system benefits the rich and the powerful. And I don't think that should be the way that it exists. We should have an economy where the workers and communities that are creating wealth are deciding how that wealth is used, and our economic decisions are made democratically. So specifically for Common Council, right? Some of the things we can be doing, there's a lot of stuff that the Common Council and city government could be doing that they're not, and there's things they could be doing differently. One of the big things I'm talking about in this campaign is using a little known state law to replace We Energies with a utility that's owned by the people instead of shareholders. And there is actually, for your listeners out there, if any of you all have ever paid bills, like what it's like to live under We Energies and how their prices keep going up and up. And strangely enough, it might sound insane, but there is actually a law, Chapter 197 of the state statutes, that would allow the city of Milwaukee to purchase the infrastructure from We Energies and operate it as a municipal or cooperative utility, and allowing us in other cities that have this, they actually have lower prices and better service. And I think Milwaukeeans deserve that. That's just one of the reasons I'm running. I'm running also to stand up for tenants over landlords and do everything we can legally to support regular people and support like the organization of tenants and to support our public schools, create a safer and healthier city, and stand with city workers. So the policy reasons are kind of the main, to directly answer your question, are the main reasons I'm running for this, because right now City Hall, in my opinion, rolls out the red carpet for the big corporations and the rest of us are left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Take it from there.
Take it from there.
Take it from there. All right. What specific challenges in your district or the city of Milwaukee are you inspired to? We've seen it. We've seen the news for that district. I've seen a lot of the news in that district on all angles, the great and the ugly. Because I gotta say, I love that district personally. It's a great place for me. I spend a lot of money in that district.
Oh yeah, no, the East Side, Brady Street, River West, those are great places to visit and great places to live. I've lived in that area since at least 2013, and I want to, and I would just say that like some of the challenges that I'm seeing are challenges that people are facing all over. They're all over the city. They're a little more acute on the east side, but cost of living
Yeah.
is a huge thing that people are facing right now. Housing prices are going through the roof, especially on the east side, right? Energy costs are, as we discussed with We Energies, are going through the roof. We Energies got approved a rate increase in January, and they've got another one coming down the pike to increase our rates again 8% in January of 2026. Also, just prices of everything are going up, right? And there's concern about education here in Milwaukee, right? MPS needs to be operating our schools better. And also on top of all that, we have a lead crisis going on in our schools. And that's something that I think people in the 3rd district are feeling acutely, because Maryland Avenue Montessori School has been one of the schools identified with high concentrations of lead exposure for children. And that's completely unacceptable. Now, we have a separately elected school board. So I just want to note that I support the school board being a separate entity. I don't support a mayoral or a state takeover of the school district, but as the Common Council, we can use our voices and any legal power we have to promote public education. But so those are some of the things I'm hearing, and additionally, what else I'm hearing from people as I knock on the doors as far as what they're facing is just being afraid of this onslaught coming out of Washington from the far right, from the Donald Trump administration, and they're looking for people to stand up to Donald Trump and say that this is not acceptable, what's going on in this country right now under his leadership.
All right.
All right.
Hey, great question. Great answer. Excuse me.
Mhm.
All right. We look.
Well, that was
we
a
got
great question too.
Look, I got to shout out the team for that. 414-444-5253. If you have any questions, comments for Mr. Alex Brower. Looks like we have a caller right now, right? Caller, you're on the air. Be a Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices, WNOV. Good morning.
Good morning to you, gentlemen. I was listening to all the person that's running for that all of the automatic district over there, and it struck a chord because he said he wants to fight for tenants and tenants' rights. Now, they have community advocates and a couple other. They even got them like George right down in the courthouse, crossing Room 400. How do you plan on helping tenants against landlords?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I believe the
Well,
question
you just said it. You just said you want to help people. Now tell me what you want to do.
No, that's a great question. I believe the question specifically for those that weren't able to hear it was how we're going to help tenants over landlords. So specifically, I want to use every single resource we can under existing law to curtail the power of landlords, right? So that's a huge thing. The first, and now there's unfortunately the Republicans in the legislature have put a lot of restrictions on what cities can do specifically, but I want to be exploring with the city's attorney's office every single thing we can do to hold these landlords accountable, especially when it comes to maintaining these properties, right? We got properties out here the landlords are owning, they're not even repairing them. And that we can use the Department of Neighborhood Services, which does code enforcement, to enforce the code violations and all these landlords that aren't maintaining their properties. So I'll be advocating for that, firstly, to directly answer the caller's question. And then also when it comes to housing, we need to be offering alternatives to just the landlord-tenant paradigm that's going on. Landlords have way too much power. But this city, the city government itself right now owns north of 3,200 vacant lots in the city right now. That the city, and that's a lot of it's in the 06 and 08 zip codes. But we can use those vacant lots and the authority of the borrowing authority of the housing authority to construct more public housing or cooperative housing on those vacant lots and have more housing available so that people can tell these greedy landlords to take a hike and move into public housing. And so I'd say that's a part of the mix too, is expanding the amount of public housing and using our economic development agencies like the Economic Development Commission to encourage tenant-owned housing or cooperative housing, not only in the 3rd district, but all over the city. So those are some of the specific things I'll be doing. I guess additionally, there's an organization out there right now and several groups working to fight for tenants. Common Ground is one of them. The Milwaukee Autonomous Tenants Union is another one. I'll be standing with those organizations publicly and working to achieve their goals alongside of them while on the Common Council.
Great. So maybe you could talk a little bit, and maybe painting with a broad brushstroke here, and the wide, the wide scope view of what your vision is for the city of Milwaukee.
Yeah, a city that has an economy that works for everyone. So in this election, I've been endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America. I'm running as a socialist in this race, and what that means to me is that, like I said before, that wealth being created, when it's created, it should be owned by the people that create it. Right now, there's people in this world. It's hard to even imagine that there's people in this world right now who just own pieces of paper called stock certificates, and they get to decide and make decisions for us, even though they're the ones not paying the bills. They're not the ones renting. They're not the ones even doing the work. And so I believe we should have an entire economy where the people that do the work to create something, whether that's, cleaning or working in schools, or making or manufacturing something, those people should be the ones making the decisions, right? And we also, more specifically to the city government, we need to have a city government that both has those values and also is more responsive and accountable and transparent. Right now, I really do believe that some leaders at City Hall, while they have their hearts in the right place, they aren't taking every step they can to make sure that City Hall works for regular people. So, just as an example, I think we can look at things like contracts that are being given out to private contractors. Some of that work could be done by city employees, and how many of those contracts are being followed up on and making sure they're doing all the right things, and how many of them are being given out to people's friends. Another piece of transparency and a broad vision that I want to bring is more participation as well by regular people in city government. So right now, I believe it's chapter 300 of the City Code of Ordinances sets the number of people on the Common Council. And then right now it's set at 15. And state statutes and the current Code of Ordinances, to my knowledge, will allow us to actually expand the number of people on the Common Council. So rather than just 15 people making the decisions in the legislative body, there should be more. This is a special election, so this is to fill the remainder of a term. There was an unfortunate tragedy, for the listeners that aren't aware. There was an unfortunate tragedy with the alderman that was sitting in this position. He passed away. So this is to refill the remaining 3 years of that seat. So in 2028, we've got everybody on the Common Council up for re-election. And I would advocate that there should be more than just 15 seats by the time we hit that election, so that we can have even more people and even more voices, even more communities represented down at City Hall. And so this, I guess, if I can offer some more explanation, if that doesn't fully answer what you were saying, but broadly speaking, that's what I want to be advocating for.
I got a question. It's completely off the thing. I just like to ask the sidebar questions. What do you think it would take to bring our city closer? Overall, I know it's a broad question, but what could bring our city closer? I just feel like we're, it's some, even in our community, in the Black community, some of us are, disconnected because you got certain groups in this area. But as a whole, what could, maybe possibly unify Milwaukee a little bit? And maybe that's too broad of a question, but what do you see?
No, I think it's the right question we should be asking. And I don't think a lot of people at City Hall are asking questions like that. So specifically, I think a democratically decided or set of or single goal that we all agree to. Like, we should literally say, what do we want Milwaukee to accomplish collectively? We should pose that question in a seriously to the voters and to communities. What do we want to accomplish? Do we want to get rid of We Energies? Do we want to reduce crime by getting to the source? Do we want to have a responsive and accountable and transparent government? And I hope everybody would adopt all of those. But I really think the question of asking to the constituents and to the citizenry and residents here in Milwaukee, what do we want to see better? And when we actually genuinely ask that question and find the commonalities of those answers from across the city, whether it's the Black community, the Hmong community, white, trans, every community that's in this city, let's find out what those common things are. And then we've established that and collectively decide that as a goal. I think that's a way we can unite, the city and bring everybody together to accomplish something. And that'll be a way that, when we're in the struggle together, those barriers that exist between us, gender, race, cultural backgrounds, when we're in the struggle together, those things all disappear when we fight together. Right. And I've been in the union movement for a number of years and in community organizations where I've worked alongside people that are completely different from me. And I just appreciate when we're all in the fight. When I was working on the Fight for 15 and we were calling for 15 in the union at McDonald's and other fast food places, that was such a diverse group of people that was advocating for that change. And so I would say to broadly to your question that we should find a goal, and unite it behind it as a city. And everybody does their part, and that's how we can cross these divides that exist, both physical and cultural divides that are here in Milwaukee.
Thank you. Appreciate
Great question. We all know crime is is a problem here in Milwaukee. Been battling it for years. So how do you plan to address crime and public safety concerns here in the city?
Oh yeah, in a number of different ways. I mean, I'll say this broadly, that nobody deserves to be unsafe in this town. Right. We need to value every single life. And that means that people need to be able to walk down the street and not for fear of not getting robbed, or walk out to their car in their morning and not find the window busted, because somebody decided to break in overnight. Those are unacceptable things. Right. And so, that kind of stuff's happened to me, where I've woken up and then my car window's broken. And so I feel for anybody who's going through that. So everybody deserves to be safe in their person and in their property. Here in Milwaukee. I mean, I'll broadly acknowledge though that the biggest form of theft that does occur in this country and probably in this city is wage theft and people being exploited. But when we're talking about crime and criminal activity going on, I think one of our tactics needs to be, and our strategy needs to be, to get to the root cause of these things. Because when we look at policing right now, it is not working. Our city spends almost half of its budget on the police, and we're not getting a return on that in a very real sense. Like literally we've told the state government, we made a deal with state government. It was called Act 12. We made a deal with state government where we're going to increase the number of sworn police officers. And I believe City Hall is attempting to do that. I don't know if they're completely successful in this, but where they're attempting to increase the number of police officers. But it's, even if we reach that point, and as we work to reach that point, we are not going to be safer. Right? The real thing we have to do, and I know some people think this sounds sappy, but like the real answer, because we cannot have a cop sitting next to somebody in every single car telling them to drive right. We can't have a cop at every single corner. That would be an obscene amount of expense, right? We have to get to the root causes. Why are people being driven to criminal activity? Right. And so the answer is, there's a multi-part answer, I would say, that I'll be advocating for on the council. Besides just broadly the police being more connected to the community, I think they're really failing in that, and they should be doing a better job of that. But when it comes to reducing crime, we need to look at economics. Do we have enough good paying jobs in this city to prevent somebody from having to go into crime and having to go into criminal activity to make ends meet, right? I think that is a big driver of what's going on. Are we building up our city's health department so that it's robust enough so that anyone who's suffering from addiction or a mental health crisis can be served by somebody and have their needs met, right? I do believe that addiction is also a driver of people committing crimes. They see something in the backseat of a car, they have an addiction they want to feed, and that's a sickness. They have an addiction they want to feed, so they're going to break through the window and steal whatever they've just seen. If the addiction is at that level. And let's have a health department that can address those levels of addiction so that people don't have to have that kind of addiction where they need to steal something to sell it to buy more drugs, right? Let's also engage young people. I was at a business the other day. I really felt bad for this business owner. I was at a business over on Oakland just a few weeks ago, having some dinner, and some young people came in. They had a Bluetooth speaker. They actually brought in food from a different restaurant, which I thought was incredibly rude. But they brought in the food, and they were just being disrupting other customers. And the owner I think just felt helpless to not be able to do anything. And what we need to do, though, rather than just like coming down on those kids or yelling at them or something like that, or bringing a punishment on them, we need to and this was said by actually one of the sewer socialists from back in the day, if we want to prevent the wrong thing from happening, we need to provide a means to do right. And so when we talk about young people, there's literally no place in the 3rd district or elsewhere in the city where young people can go and just be themselves and not be nagged about doing their homework or something, but they can just go and hang out with their friends. That's a safe space, a drug-free space, and a supervised space. Like, we need spaces like that for young people, because if we can't just come out and say, wag our fingers, say, you kids stop stealing Kias, without alternatively saying, here's what you can be doing instead. Here's a constructive activity. And so youth engagement, having young people engaged so that the conversation doesn't just turn to, let's steal a car. Right, where we can actually engage young people. And I've been working with young people for years as a substitute teacher for Milwaukee Public Schools. And I think I believe that even these young people who are engaging in behaviors we don't want them to engage in, like stealing or being disruptive, they're still good people at heart, and we have to just engage them positively. So I guess as far as like the 3 prongs that I'm going to be looking at as far as reducing crime and making the city actually safe, would be economic, supporting an economy that works for everybody, a health department that can support those in need, and engaging young people.
Okay. You mentioned one thing, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out
Yeah.
there. As a former councilman myself,
Mhm.
I know how hard it is to attract and retain
Mhm.
firefighters,
Yeah.
police officers, those people that really make your
Mhm.
city go.
Yeah.
What's your plan to not only attract the new officers and firefighters and all the people that we need, but how do we retain them so that
Yeah.
that seniority doesn't go to another city or another township?
No, and with all city workers, whatever department they're in, police or fire or library or waterworks, um, we need to have a benefits and wage package that retains people and that's competitive right now. I don't think that's working for City Hall right now is the best job in this town, and it should be. Right,
Mhm.
that should be the pride of this city should be the people that work every single day to serve us. The conditions under which we receive city services, whether that's potholes getting fixed, street lights getting turned back on, or a police car responding to an emergency, the conditions of that service delivery are the workers' working conditions. So that would be the first prong by which I would address that issue of retention just across the board.
Mhm.
Right? For every department would be having quality wage and benefit package, and we do that by talking with the unions. There, I've been in contact with people through the who are in the union that's the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Ask me, and I'm looking forward to having conversations with them while on the council about how we can have policies and ordinances and budgets for the city government that actually support that. Secondly, I think with some of these bureaucracies of city government and Milwaukee Public Schools, I'm a little more familiar with how their hiring works over city government. But I will say that if it's anything like some of the government bureaucracies I've encountered, it probably has some work to do as far as actually attracting and retaining and actually doing like the actual recruitment,
Mhm.
right? Like not just holding a job fair and waiting for somebody, to come on down to some gymnasium somewhere, but like actually going out there and being at places where people are at and saying, having a booth. This is what the city of Milwaukee, and look at all these jobs we have. I actually was told by somebody had asked me that there is some departments have a 25% vacancy rate right now. And I haven't verified that myself, but I trust it when it comes from the city workers union. But that's completely unacceptable.
Mhm.
Our city workforce should be completely full, and maybe that's to do with the wages and benefit package, and would also be an issue of just getting out there and finding people where they are and saying this is why you should work for the city of Milwaukee, and it should be something people are proud of doing. So those would be the two prongs that I would approach that I would take when it comes to the city's workforce.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Hey, thank you for all these
Yeah.
detailed, great
Yeah.
responses. We bringing them back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, we're bringing them back. We're
For a
about
little
to
bit.
take a break real quick. We're on Being Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices. Brian and Joe in the morning. It sounds like a coffee show in the morning. Brian and Joe in the morning, Being Voice Radio with 3rd District candidate Alex Brower. We'll be right back in about 30 seconds or more.
Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices. We're in the midst of a robust discussion with Alex Brower, 3rd District candidate for Common Council. Brian.
All right, let's go. How do you plan on to engage with the community and ensure all voices are heard, especially underrepresented groups? Probably even just from, like you said, I guess we already kind of got into that already.
A little bit.
Yeah, we did. So, I mean, you'll probably be doing a lot of that at the Common Council, especially because, that'll be your big representation for the whole city. So I know 3rd District has a nice paid group of people over there in that area, but as far as for the city, how do you see it?
No, right. And I would argue, I'm going to be arguing to everybody, all of my colleagues in the council, and I've been arguing to voters as well, that the people on the Common Council should care about the entire city.
Yeah.
And not just, this is more than just a little fiefdom of your district.
Right.
Because we sit on the legislative body that makes decisions for the entire city of Milwaukee. So whether you represent the east side or the north side, south side, any part of the city and any community that exists, you have to consider the entire city when you're making a decision and whether it's going to benefit everybody there. So I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing for years. For a long time, I was a community organizer. I worked for Wisconsin Jobs Now, for those of you who remember that organization. And, it's the United Food and Commercial Workers. I did a little bit of time with SEIU as well, the union there. And I'll be continuing to do things like have one-on-one conversations with community leaders, regular residents, and organizations that represent people. As a community organizer, I'm always an advocate of people joining organizations and knocking doors. And so through the organizations that currently exist and even new ones that pop up, meeting with representatives of those groups. So I'll give an example. Before this election even came out, I had a chance to sit down with an organizer from Common Ground. And they haven't made an endorsement or anything like that in this race, and I'm just bringing them up as an example. I met with an organizer from them to talk about what's going on at the Housing Authority of the city of Milwaukee and with the work they're doing to organize the tenants there. And so I'll be doing that, as a member of the Common Council, even if there's people that don't live in District 3 that are there, especially because a lot of District 3 residents, and they will acknowledge this themselves too, are very privileged, and they do expect me. I've already been asked by voters to make sure that we're listening to the underrepresented groups and the working poor throughout this entire city. So meeting with organizational representatives, no matter what part of the city they're from, is going to be one of the things that I'll be doing. And then just, getting around the city as well and going to events all over the city, whether it's the north side or the south side, and not just staying only in the east side. Although that obviously will be my top priority because, I have to represent, we got to try to fill every pothole over there too.
So I've hit a couple over there. You got something to work out. Look, I've hit a couple over there.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. Seriously.
They'll make you wake up too.
Yeah, I know, right? Yes. Happy Monday morning. Here's a pothole. No, but for real though, and just being present, and considering, the impact of any policy on the entire city of Milwaukee, is how I'm going to govern. And again, just looking to those organizations, because the community-based organizations are the ones that have their voice and their fingers on the pulse of any community within the city of Milwaukee. So Common Ground is an example, the Milwaukee Autonomous Tenants Union, groups like Wisconsin Voices and other groups and unions that are advocating for specific communities. I'll be meeting with them and listening to what they're saying.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit more about how you plan to create more job opportunities for young people?
Yeah. No. And one of the things I want to do, as a council, we have, so the city does quite a bit of economic development activity. Like there's sometimes they will literally give checks to organizations or entities that are doing, that are creating jobs or creating some sort of business or something. And so one of the things I'd like to do is have our economic development focus on building democratic businesses like cooperatives, and we're basically businesses that are owned by the people that work there rather than investors. And so when you have situations like that, when you have cooperative businesses, they're going to be way more likely to, first of all, pay higher wages to everybody. So that even if a young person doesn't have a job, their parents can have more abundance in their lives. But then also when you have a business like that, they're going to be more likely to hire young people from the community. I think the city at one point had a pilot program, and I'm not familiar if it's still going on or not, where they were hiring at-risk youth to work on things like parks and different city services, or intern in different city offices to learn about city government. So I'd love to continue programs like that too. We have to work with Milwaukee Public Schools to make sure that everybody's aware of opportunities and that there are opportunities for everybody that's out there.
Okay. Yeah.
Where we at, Joe? You want to ask him some more questions? Should we keep the interrogation? No,
keep it going.
No, this is being held accountable right here.
Absolutely. I like the job of I just like more jobs. Period. I worked at Workforce Services, so that's important for me for our city overall, just for the whole city, just to bring in jobs.
And when we are talking to potential employers or groups that want to bring jobs in the city, or want a check from the city or a tax break for doing economic development, we have to be asking them, what's the quality of the job that you're creating? How many are there going to be? What's going to be we need to be asking about how they will be as employers. Because once we put money in the hands of regular people, that's going to create economic activity as well. The higher wages that we have in this city, the more spending is going to occur. Right. And we've had, since we've had the industrial corridors of this city destroyed by greedy corporations that want to outsource jobs either to the South or to other countries, and gutted the unions here in this city, we've had not the jobs that have replaced it have not been quality jobs. Mm-hmm. Right. The service sector 100% needs to be fully unionized. I'm such a fan of that and all, but they will deal more with us having quality jobs in this city that'll actually bring real economic change to people. I'll be the organizer in chief for the 3rd district and advocating that every single person join or form or get involved in their union if they have one.
How do we attract those high-paying jobs to come to Milwaukee? How do we get those this high-tech, high-paying, high-skilled labor jobs? And then on the other side of that coin, if we do get those, how do we get our population here in Milwaukee completely up to speed and get enough people trained and ready and equipped for those jobs?
Yeah, I think that the Common Council and almost any legislative body doesn't have necessarily the scope to just force employers to come to Milwaukee and locate here. But with that said, I'll go back to the economic development piece I was talking about. We need to create cooperative businesses, or at the very worst, locally owned businesses that are based right here in Milwaukee, that have as part of their founding principles that they're not going to leave for a cheaper workforce in the South or another part of the state or another country. That's been the source of, I would specifically say that a piece of globalization has left Milwaukee behind. Right. And that, to reverse that, we need to have corporations that are based here, that are committed here. And we do that through democracy. So big picture, we need to elect more socialists all across this country so we can have an economy where the richest 1% are not making the decisions. And those kind of decisions, when they're the ones making decisions, they're going to move factories away from places like Milwaukee. They're going to attempt to raise healthcare costs so that they don't have to pay as much. They're going to attempt to weaken pensions so that they don't have to contribute as much and less comes out of their bottom line. That's one of the problems, too, is just our economy as a whole. We have to all stand up and say that, the idea that you can own stock in a corporation and then make decisions about what that corporation does when you yourself are not even doing anything with that corporation. All you do is own a piece of paper. That's just wrong, right? And that's the essence of capitalism. And that is why I'm running as a socialist in this race, because we do need to change our entire economy overall. I don't have a full answer about how we can do that, except for that we need to build a Milwaukee-based and Milwaukee-owned corporations in high-paying industries, and then, or alternatively, turn the industries that are low-paying into high-paying jobs, and that would be through unions.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, Alex? Your final plea to the voters out there? If you had, 3 or 4 minutes to really do that last minute plea, what would it be?
Well, and I wouldn't even call it a plea. I would call it an aspirational call. You know, we can do better in this city. I believe that city government, at one point in time in the history of Milwaukee, the mayor of Milwaukee was on the cover of Time magazine for this city being run so well. And that was one of our last socialist mayors, Daniel Hone. That was back in 1936. But we have an opportunity to do that again and be a well-run city that's accountable and transparent and where every single voice is heard, right? And has a seat at the decision-making table. It's been said that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, you know, right? And so I am running to be a voice and be an advocate for the people that are not at the table right now. Our campaign, you know, whether we win or lose today, you know, we're out there providing this, you know, aspirational vision of a better city that transcends the current status quo and the current, aw shucks, we can't do anything attitude that city government has right now in Milwaukee, and looks to a city that actually lowers the cost of living for regular people instead of just sitting by and letting it rise through the roof. Our campaign has had 149 unique volunteers out there knocking on doors. I know I'm really, really proud. And that's because of the Milwaukee Democratic Socialists of America. We're a grassroots organization that works to build socialism. And, you know, there 149 unique volunteers, almost 670 unique donors as well, averaging about $20 in their donations. We're totally a grassroots campaign. I can't say the same thing for my opponent on those metrics. But so that's my pitch, the aspirational call that I'll make, you know, for the voters out there, whether you live in District 3 or not. Like, and I really appreciate, you know, this station and you guys covering this, because this does affect the entire city of Milwaukee. And so we are, for those, I'll say this, for those that are interested in getting involved or learning more, you can visit alexbrowerforcommoncouncil.org to learn more about our campaign. But anyone, no matter where you are in Wisconsin listening to this, you got to vote today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll segue that. We appreciate that. We're going to segue. Look like you got one call before you get up out of here. Caller, you're on Be a Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices, 860 WNOV. Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. I had to look it up while you guys were talking. The top salaries of most super high famous unions are in the 6 digits, like $250,000, stuff like that. But I'd check, is this in the top 10%, the top 20%, whatever? It's definitely more than the top 10% income. Furthermore, pensions of union pensions are invested in capitalism. So pension owners of all of these different unions that are always criticizing, such as the man here openly saying he's socialist, all of these union leaders have every employee where your pensions are invested in capitalism. So you just insulted capitalism a couple of minutes ago, which is typical of all socialists. So you're declaring war on the very people who create jobs, and then you...
Do you have a question?
Well, go ahead and say anything you want about anything I've said. Please do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I can respond to some of the callers' concerns about that. I think they were concerned about potential of hypocrisy, saying that look at all these job creators that are capitalists, and why would I criticize capitalism? I mean, I would say that at the core, innovation, that people want inherently to be innovative and help other people, and you don't need the profit motive to help other people. Right? You don't need the profit motive to think of a good idea that can improve people's lives, an invention, right? People attribute a lot of that stuff to capitalism. The caller also brought up the question of high union salaries in the union movement. Yeah, I mean, I disagree with some of those salaries myself, right? But that doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, the union movement has done more in this country to transform how regular people live, and it should be completely supported. And yeah, I don't think that some of those union bosses deserve that salary, but like, that doesn't mean we should get rid of the union movement or oppose it, for that matter. And so as far as like how, the unions, their pensions being on the stock market, once we can transition away from a stock market based economy, pensions won't need to be in the stock market. Right. And so I'm not calling for everything to just go away at once. We're going to transition to a worker owned economy that won't rely on stocks or corporate bonds. And we'll have to look at alternatives to that. I think we can have a retirement system in this country without having those things. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to say one thing. We did invite your opponent to come on today. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, so we just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Alex, so much for coming in today.
Thanks
and
for
good luck.
having me. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices on 860 AM, 106.5 FM.
Wisconsin Voice's 3 pillars are protecting democracy. Your vote is your voice. Wisconsin Voices works to protect democracy in Wisconsin by fighting voter suppression, promoting voting rights, and ensuring fair elections for all. Teaching advocacy. Teaching advocacy empowers and educates advocates in Wisconsin by offering training, resources, and support to enhance their skills, fostering a more informed and effective advocacy community for social and economic change. Building community. Wisconsin Voices builds strong communities for a healthy democracy by collaborating with diverse partners, creating networks for positive change, and fostering a sense of belonging and common purpose. Learn more about Wisconsin Voices by going to wisconsinvoices.org. Learn more about what our partners are doing by visiting the events calendar. Listen to recent episodes by going to our podcast and radio. Get involved today.
You're listening to Wisconsin Voices, Be a Voice Radio. Follow us at BAWI Voice and learn more at wisconsinvoices.org.
Remembering what we stand for. At Wisconsin Voices, we remember what we stand for. Check out our movement dedicated to empowering citizens and shaping the future. Engage with us on our website, social media, and podcast to make a difference. Visit wisconsinvoices.org. Explore our events calendar, like and subscribe to us on social media. Listen to recent podcasts and radio, and subscribe to our email and newsletter. Amplify your voice and be a voice today.
You're listening to WNOV 860 and W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
All right, y'all. Welcome back on this beautiful Sunday. Tuesday. I'm sorry. Sunny day. Sunny day. Sunny day. I'm going to say. Right. Yeah. On this beautiful sunny Tuesday is what I meant to say. And election day, April 1st, we're with another guest, somebody we work with close with through Wisconsin Voices. I'll just have him do an introduction because you really don't need one. So go ahead, sir. Who are you to the people?
Pastor Gregory Lewis,
Pastor Gregory Lewis.
Executive Director of Souls to the Polls.
Mr. Lewis, what's going on out there with y'all, Souls to the Polls? I know it's a busy time. It's
Busy
been,
day.
you know, what's going on with Souls to the Polls this week, or what you guys been up to lately?
Well, you know, the work that needed to be done has been done. Now it's kind of like knock and drag time, knocking on doors and dragging people to the polls. But you know, it's always kind of a nervous time for me because we put in a lot of work trying to get people out to vote, and we just hope the Lord blesses us with a good turnout. And so I'm kind of nervous sitting around just waiting for results now. And I don't even come out and do stuff like this on election day because you know, I'm usually driving people to the polls. And you know, now we have such an intricate organization of drivers that I don't have to do much driving anymore, except for close friends who call me, who have been calling me over the years, and I go pick them up and take them to the polls. As a matter of fact, I got an appointment at about 2:30 to take a little old friend to the polls. She lost her absentee ballot and she needed to go to the polls today. And I told her I had some things to do. And I told her I'd be by there to pick her up about 2:30. So I'll be doing that. And in between that time, there's a woman who is 105 years old. And she's taking her ballot to City Hall today at 1:00. And I'm going to meet her to be with her as she takes her ballot to the polls today. You know, that's kind of warming and touching, you know, to have someone who is 105 really struggling to get around, making sure that she, you know, commits herself to engaging into the process that she saw that wasn't even hers in the past. And she saw the fight for voting rights, the right to vote. And now she's adamant about not letting this time pass her by. And I'm going to be with her at City Hall at 1:00. So that it's a day just to, you know, if you don't do the work before now, you know,
We always talk about making a plan to vote. We always talk about making that plan,
right.
and for a lot of folks, it sounds like Souls to the Polls is part of that plan.
Yeah. If you you know, you can call us at 414-742-1060 if you need a ride. 414-742-1060, and that's what we're doing today. We're giving folks rides to the polls, and hopefully a lot of people will call, because we need people to come out and vote. Because if you have folks in your family who are elderly, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security is on the line, you know, and I was talking to a guy the other day, and his Social Security check needs to be on time, because, you know, sometimes at the end of the month, you know, he didn't even have $5 in his pocket. And now, you know, we have that system of help, safety net, that safety net being threatened right now. You know, voting is not just for you. You know, you got to care about somebody besides you when it comes to voting, because we got these elderly people who really have to really watch every penny. And now you're talking about cutting that, you know, and there's people talking about it who never have to receive Social Security. They don't have any idea what's going on. They are so out of touch with reality, how we live, that they think that that's not a big deal. You know, higher prices aren't a big deal. Paying $3,000 more for a car is not a big deal. Well, that's a huge deal in my community, because people have to really conserve their monies if they want to make it from month to month, week to week. So this is really a time for folks to get out and vote, man, because education is on the line today. Women's rights are on the line today. Civil rights is on the line today. Voting rights is on the line today. Just being treated right is on the line today. So people need to get out and vote. And, you know, we've been talking about this since November, you know, after the election. You know, you take a few days off and then you get back to it if you are Souls to the Polls. And we've been talking about this all this time. And my biggest issue with what needs to happen is that people really don't know there's a vote today. I mean, really, that's literally the truth. You know, you saying that, you know, a lot of people don't know. No, it's more than a lot. The majority of people don't know there's a vote today. And that's just a crying out shame. And people, that's your real power, because that has no it has no amount of money for you to vote. I mean, the rich get one vote, the poor get one vote. Everybody gets one vote who's eligible to vote. And that is the great equalizer. And people need to understand, you need to be voting, because that's your greatest power in this land. You know, you could kind of think about, you know, the national elections when, you know, you may have a little bit of a question about whether your vote counts, but that doesn't matter in these local elections, because people can win by one vote. And you ought to be voting right now. You know, state elections, people can win by a very narrow margin. So your vote really counts now. So people, stop believing that your vote doesn't count, because that vote is so powerful. And it's the great equalizer, if I can repeat myself, because I don't care who you are, you only get one. So that's the, you know, that's the epitome of democracy here in our country. You get one and you have that power. And if we all work together, organize together, we can get what we need. We can get what we want, and people can look out for our interests if we decide that we want someone who will. And that is important for people to know. So get out and vote, everybody. You got till 8 o'clock tonight. Get out and vote. It's very important that you do. And it's not just important for today. It's important for people to look out for you, because if you don't vote, people who have resources and power really don't have a reason to look out for your interests, because the first thing that happens when you call City Hall, like the order candidate, the first thing he might be cool now, but once he get in that office, the first thing he gonna want to know is, are you a voter when you call in to complain? So, people, you better understand that, hey man, this vote is particularly important. First of all, for this, for the state Supreme Court justice seat, it's really important, and for that. Well, all of them are important, but particularly for that Supreme Court justice seat, state Supreme Court justice, and the Education Department of Instruction. Those are very, very important positions in our state, and somebody needs to be held accountable for the law that's being made here and the education for our children. That's so very important.
Yeah, I do agree that what you're saying about everybody get the knowledge on voting. I'm not really aware, but was it like a big civic piece taken out of the schools in MPS during the late to mid, or the early to mid 90s and 2000s? Was there like a civic engagement piece taken out of their just because, me speaking to people my age, I know like a bunch that do vote, but then it's just like this big wall of folks here that just, and I was raised in a family that went to the polls, but was there like a civic piece taken out of the education system here that just, took the care or the concern for voting? I know outside of, what we see where people just don't care because they're, why I care about voting because I got to put food on my plate. But, was there something taken out of the education piece here in the MPS? I didn't go to MPS, but maybe it was something that I might have missed, because it's just like it's defiance against it. It's
Where'd you go? You didn't go to MPS?
No, I went to Glendale River Hill School District.
Okay.
I grew up in the city though, but
Okay.
yeah, I went to school in the burbs.
I was just interested to know.
Yeah.
No, I was in a meeting the other day with pastors and leaders, mainly pastors, faith leaders of all denominations. And that question came up, and one of the people there said that they still teach civics in school. And it was something that I was not aware of, because, when I went to school, which was a while back, man, you had to take,
right,
a civic class.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how to answer that question, because I'm hearing different stories about that. But,
Okay.
But I can say this. We're not making our young people knowledgeable of the fact that they need to be engaged in the process. And they really do believe that it's nonsense. And that is such a misnomer, because if you listen, why would so many people be trying to make sure you don't vote by putting all these obstacles in your way? It was 62 last year. I count 72 this year. I'm talking about obstructions to vote. Why would they put all those obstructions in your way if that vote didn't mean much?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just got to make sense out of it. You got to be rational about this. Why are so many people making sure you don't vote? Why is so much money being spent to make sure you don't vote if your vote doesn't really matter? I mean, they spent. I got I got proof right here in Wisconsin, because somebody came to town, gave $2 million to some people up in Green Bay the other day, because they want to make sure that they stay in power. Now, if you telling me that your vote don't count, why would somebody come here 10 million, then give $2 million checks to two people? Your vote counts. It's very, very valuable. And you need to understand that. And people, we got to stop that nonsense about, saying our vote doesn't count. That's just nonsense. And you playing right into the hands of folks who don't want you to vote.
So you know what? Just piggybacking off of what you said. We had this conversation yesterday of how they had a problem with giving the voters that were standing in line water and things like that, stuff that you need to survive. standing out in the heat or whatever you was doing, they would give you water and food, and they was looking at that as it was encouraging you to vote. Well, the problem I'm having now is you have this guy that's giving out life-changing money that's pretty much buying your vote. That's like strong arming your vote, because if I give $1 million to a person that really need it, that person is going to take it, and then he's going to do whatever you really want him to do because you bought his vote. And that right there has me, kind of like, okay, what's really going on? And that the courts won't even talk about this thing. The courts won't even pick it up and challenge it. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of scary to me.
But see, that's because the game is tight.
Yeah,
it really is tight. That's why they want that Supreme Court justice to be somebody who they can control.
Yeah.
See, because we don't get the same privileges as others. And that's just the bottom line. Me as a Black American, a Black man, I don't get the same privileges as my white counterpart.
Right.
I don't get those same privileges.
Right.
Sometimes I don't even get treated like a person.
Yeah.
But we need people in place who can fix that.
Yeah.
And we got to strive to get that done, because now we're so far on the bottom as people of color, and we've been bamboozled because we keep letting people tell us we're minorities. Well, I can tell you need to Google this. What's the percentage of white people in the world? Google that. I'm not going to even tell you what it is. I want you to Google it for yourself. You will be astonished to know that we've been bamboozled for all this time to believe we're powerless, and we're not. We just don't organize ourselves like we should. We aren't outnumbered. We are out organized. And that's why, we do this thing with Souls to the Polls, so we can organize ourselves in communities, especially communities of color, but not just communities of color. People got that all messed up too, because we touch all communities all over the state. We're Souls to the Polls, Wisconsin. We touch everybody in the state. So,
nice.
And then it's like, we're an army of faith, the power of 100,000 souls to the polls. And that means all over this state, we touch people. And I think we affect 100,000 votes at any time.
And we're going to try to keep affecting more. I appreciate you. I love working with y'all, and I got out there and did a couple drives myself, but I do want to get out there and do some more work with you. So let's get in touch.
Amen.
And let's connect. Again, you got Brian and Joe, Be a Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices, WNOV 860 106.5 FM.
Yeah, don't go nowhere yet.
We ain't going yet?
Want to remind you right quickly, of course, 3 o'clock this afternoon, you can join Pastor Greg Lewis, Michelle Bryant, Will, the entire crew. We're here for Election Central. Kicks off officially at 3 o'clock this afternoon, but we've been doing it all day. So again, come on back, join us. We'll have the Republicans, we'll have the Democrats, and we'll have Souls to the Polls. Go ahead, B. Take us out.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, I'm going ahead and take y'all out. Be a Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices. We'll see y'all next week. God bless y'all. Be safe out there.
Go vote.